Work, a noun that means exertion or effort directed to produce or accomplish something. Labor, toil, something on which exertion or labor is expended, a task or undertaking. This weekend is called Labor Day weekend. We celebrate work. We celebrate labor. We celebrate our work by taking a day off. We rest as God rested after creating our world. Our work includes many different kinds of activities. We exercise and burn calories, and that's work. We agree to serve an employer for a certain amount of money, and that's work. Taking care of the land on which our homes are located is called yard work. Sometimes even our relationships with other human beings is called work. In our culture, it is considered an honor to work and then to retire from work. How should followers of Jesus look at this area of work? Until the 1600s, the work that really mattered was spiritual work, church work. Monks, nuns, and priests were doing the important work. Before that time, ordinary farming, making clothing and tools, the work of a maid, were acknowledged as being necessary, but worldly. To serve God fully, to live a life that is truly spiritual, however, required a full-time commitment to the work of the church. Martin Luther, John Calvin, and Ulrich Zwingli, and many other reformers changed the way we look at work. These men saw that each Christian has a vocation, and those vocations have value in the eyes of God. We can honor God in all the work that we do. Author and pastor Tim Challies recently wrote an article with the title Ordinary Christian Work. And in this article, he pointed out that Paul actually has a lot to say about Labor Day. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, Challies points out that Paul seems to be answering a question. And the question is this: how can a Christian honor God through his or her ordinary life? Paul answers the question in three ways. First of all, he says that we honor God in ordinary lives when we live life under control. Paul specifically addresses the area of sexual morality. In 1 Thessalonians 4:3 he writes, "For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality." God is honored in an ordinary life if an ordinary person who lives life under control abstains from sexual immorality. Secondly, Paul says we honor God in ordinary lives when we live life in God's community, the church. In verses 9 and 10 of 1 Thessalonians 4, Paul reminds the believers, "Now concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another. For that is indeed what you are doing." Very ordinary people honor the God of the universe when they live life in God's community, the church. We also honor God in ordinary lives when we engage in ordinary work. Paul in 1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12 says, "Aspire to live quietly and to mind your own affairs and to work with your own hands, as we instructed you, so that you may live properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one." If Paul was ever going to tell people that full-time vocational Christian work is all that mattered to God, this would certainly be the time. But Paul gives some very simple instructions that go beyond geography, that go beyond time, and that go beyond even culture. Paul tells them that God is honored best when we mind our own business. That is, when we focus on our work and when we avoid being troublemakers. When we carry on with the work that we've been given by God, He receives the honor. When He tells them to work with their own hands, He means for them to carry on the work in which they are engaged, including manual labor. Their work has value simply because it was their calling, it was their God-given vocation, and it was important. If we honor God in these ways, Paul says that we will also live properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one. Do you see the truth here? If we live our lives under control, if we live our lives in community, and if we honor God in our ordinary work, we reach others. Tim Challies puts it this way: this quiet life, this life of minding one's own business and working hard, allows them to carry out the Great Commission. This morning, 5 ordinary people are going to share with you what their work, their labor, means to them as they follow Jesus.